Please come back to order. And I would like to call forward the Director of the Department of Collaboration, Mr. Edgers, to tell us about what we're doing in this area. Mr. Director, welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the County Council. I'm Ed Juris, and I am the Director of the Department of Regional Collaboration. I'm pleased to have this opportunity to appear before you today to provide testimony about our small department's budget. Our budget can be succinctly summarized as follows. Our requested expenditures consist of the salaries and benefits of the director and one staff assistant, and a modest allocation for miscellaneous expenses. As the attached chart shows, the recommended budget for 2012 is $229,595, and for 2013 is $230,107. When I became director of this department, County Executive Ed Fitzgerald advised me that this would be a lean operation, and it is. The Transition Committee recommended the creation of a Department of Regional Collaboration to be staffed by a director and one assistant. From January to September of this year, I served as the only employee of the department. In September, we hired my assistant, Emily Lundgaard, who's sitting in the first row here. She had previously served as a legislative aide in the Ohio Senate and as a legislative liaison for the Ohio Department of Development. She is a graduate of Ohio University and also holds a master's in public administration from that institution. The Department of Regional Collaboration promotes cooperation among the 59 communities of Cuyahoga County and with the county itself in the interest of efficiency and economic development. We advance this mission on a number of fronts. We first surveyed the mayors and managers of the county to identify areas they are most interested in sharing and collaborating. I have personally met or spoken with 49 of our 57 mayors to discuss shared services and opportunities for collaboration. We played a major role in planning a recent regional collaboration conference sponsored by the Efficient Government Now Network in Akron and attended by about 200 city officials. We plan to continue our work with that network to develop a playbook to guide local officials in the how-tos of specific collaborations. Other activities of the department include assessing opportunities for the county to share services it provides, such as health benefits, web design, and IT services. Participating in multi-county collaborative efforts such as the Regional Prosperity Initiative and the Sustainable Communities Consortium, advancing the merger study being undertaken by Pepper Pike, Moreland Hills, Orange, and Woodmere, encouraging communities to enter into the Business Attraction and Anti-Poaching Protocol, monitoring the state's evolving $45 million innovation fund and its efforts to repurpose educational service centers into regional service centers, interacting with our state and federal legislative delegation and lobbyists, reaching out to community leaders to apprise them of the administration's efforts and solicit their ideas, apprising mayors and managers of grant opportunities, and exploring best practices. This is an exciting time for regional collaboration as a critical mass appears to be developing. Executive Fitzgerald has made collaboration a priority, and our communities are responding. Multi-county efforts supported by local foundations and federal assistance are advancing our goals and leveraging our efforts. The state is exploring means of supporting innovation and shared services, and the press is focused on these efforts. Within the last 2 weeks, regional collaboration officials in the city of Columbus spoke to us about sharing ideas and models, and the Columbus-based nonprofit Greater Ohio asked how it might be supportive of our efforts. So I see our efforts becoming something of a model for other communities. As we shared what Dayton is doing, I think that Columbus is looking at what we're doing, and I think Greater Ohio is interested in possibly seeding these efforts in other communities. Again, our budget request simply asks to continue our two-person department along with a modest allocation for miscellaneous expenses. In light of the declines in local revenues and state assistance, efforts to encourage regional collaboration, both for cost efficiencies and economic development, are critical at this time. We respectfully request approval of the proposed budget. Mr. Chairman, I would be happy to answer questions that you or the council members may have.
Any questions? Councilman Rogers.
Just one quick question, because I know we're supposed to stay on budget, but I'm wondering, does your department work within the other departments in county government to kind of advertise services that can be provided to the municipalities particularly like the sewer maintenance program that we have?
Mr. Chairman, Councilman Rogers, what we have done is reached out to certain departments, such as the people who do the web designs. In fact, they just did a contract with Berea to design their website. I've met with Jeff Mowry, who's the director of IT for the county, very interested in seeing how developments that we could do at the county level, including cloud computing, might be used to assist the communities. Our health benefits efforts, we have currently 4 communities in Cuyahoga County who are participating in our health plan, and I think they were talking to another 6 communities that wanted to explore the possibility of participating. Executive Fitzgerald asked us to look around for other opportunities that may exist, not only for collaboration with the communities, but also collaboration between the county and certain county boards like the Adams Board.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Councilman Greenspan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question on the budget number that's projected. Obviously, we know that there are 2 of you in your department, but in the budget it only represents 1. Is your assistant being allocated somewhere else in 2011?
Mr. Chairman, Councilman Greenspan, the sheet that's attached to us, I think that allocation was just the current projection for 2011. I think that may have been for the beginning of the year because she came on in September. So you'll see that it went on to 2 after September. I'm not sure why they listed it as 1 for current projection, but again, she came on in 2011 in September.
Okay.
Director Rubino.
Mr. Chairman, the budget numbers are FTEs, so we're showing the projected full-time equivalent for 2011, and which would be less than an FTE this year. Next year, you'll see the full impact on a full-time equivalent basis, which is 2 full-time positions.
Okay.
It's 1 and a fraction, rounded to 1. Okay.
Okay.
Councilman Greenspan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we were to align, which I don't believe council has done, align the executive structure to our council committee structures, would you consider your department more under Councilman Germana's collaboration or under Schron's economic development?
Mr. Chairman, Councilman Greenspan, the county organizational chart does not break down perhaps as in much detail as the county council does. We have 4 categories in our organizational chart, and our department falls under economic development along with the economic development department that Mr. Benders just spoke of, and I believe the workforce as well. So you have those 3 under our broad categories. I will leave it to the council to decide where we best fit.
I just wanted your input as to where you thought. I'm a little. Just a comment. When you invite our mayors to events, and this goes for we just please CC council as council members as well, just so we know that discussions are being held with our mayors or trustees on different topics. It's just an invitation to do that. And then the other thing is, I get a little confused where the line gets drawn between county policy and executive initiative. Meaning, my concern is there are some positions that are being espoused in the community under the name of Cuyahoga County that may be more council policy, should be council policy, in my opinion, council policy initiatives versus, or council policy versus executive initiatives. Somehow, and I don't know how we do that, we need to clarify when the county's name is attached to a program, that it's truly a direction the county council, from our perspective, the legislative body, is in favor of moving forward towards. And I draw attention to the Regional Prosperity Initiative and then the Business Attraction Anti-Poaching Protocol, because those are being linked now with Cuyahoga County, and I don't know that there's support one way or another for either of those 2 initiatives. And I don't know yet if we've defined how we support or deny those before, or not support, but support or not support those initiatives before they're out in the public. And I think it's fairly safe to say the anti-poaching is not going as well as probably the administration would have liked it to have gone, but it's out there. And I don't know where support is on the council either for that. But at some point, we're going to have to vote on that. Participation in the RPI with revenue sharing is another issue that's been floated out there, but this council has not had a chance to weigh in on it legislatively. And I guess I would caution that any statements tread lightly on those without legislative support. And that's more of a statement than anything else.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much. And our last presenter for this afternoon is the Department of Workforce Development, David Rhines. Welcome to the
Council
committee.
President. Thank you. I understand I'm what stands between you guys and the trick-or-treaters, so. I was told by a lot of parents that I need to be quick, so. I think it's important to note that we are not asking for any general fund money. We are fully funded by the Department of Labor. Our total budget request for new money, workforce money this year is about $9.3 million. The budget authorization is a little more than that because we put in a request for rapid response money that oftentimes is made available in the event that we've got situations where we need to respond to significant layoffs. And then we have some carryover money periodically that might make that number a little bit different. But that $9.3 million in new WIA money compares to about $18 million about 4 years ago. So I think we've said in the past, and I'll say again, there's been a significant reduction in the amount of money that's available for our operation. The money gets divided into administration, services to adults, services to dislocated workers, services to youth, and then, as I mentioned, our rapid response activities. We also get some funds from TANF, our relationship with Employment and Family Services. We have an arrangement with the County Economic Development Department that allows us some funds for some flexible training and support for businesses where we may need a little more flexibility than we typically have with our funds from the Department of Labor. And then we have some revenues that come in from our one-stop partners who occupy space in our two one-stops. Because of the reduction in the federal allocations, we reduced staff pretty significantly as well. We had 80 employees, city, county combined. About 4 years ago, we're down to 25 now. And of those 25, 14 are county employees. Bulk of our service delivery, as you'd expect, is now made through contract services, through nonprofits, nonprofit providers, including United Labor Agency. They do core and intensive services for adult and dislocated workers for us, and also handle our business services component, which is the new aspect of our service delivery system that was put into place about 1.5 years ago. We work with Towards Employment. They also do core and intensive services for ex-offenders. They do a great job for us there. And then Mature Services sort of support some of the work that we do out of our one-stops. We deliver youth programs through 11 contracts recently approved by County Council. We expect to serve about 1,000 area youth during the next year, both in school, about 700, and then out of school, about 300 youth. 50% of our in-school youth, actually over 50%, are from the Cleveland Municipal School District. Our next largest service area is out of the Mayfield District, which functions as the fiscal agent for about 13 suburban districts. Looking to make connections with the new leadership at the Department of Children and Family Services. I've worked with Pat Rideout before. I think we'd like to try to see if we can't find a way to connect our youth services programs with those youth that are aging out of foster care and find a way to assist them in identifying a career path and opportunities for employment that might be beneficial to these children at a point in time where they're aging out of a system that's been there for them in the last several years or for a period of time. We do about 400 individual training accounts. These are for individuals who are TANF recipients or dislocated workers. We restrict those accounts to about $6,000 maximum for a year, and for that 12-month period of time, that we don't have them go any longer than that. Those are local parameters that we put on it based upon our budget. The ITA, individual training account, is a customer choice system, but we verify the suitability of the individual for the training request that they may want to get into advanced manufacturing. They may test at less than an eighth grade math level. We'd work with them to develop a different program that's more suitable to their skill sets. We have a list of approved training providers the individual can select from. That's provided by the state, but we evaluate local performance, and if we don't feel that they're performing the way they need to, we can remove the providers from the list if they don't perform. Training selected must be consistent with the plan jointly developed between the individual and our employment specialist. We want to make sure that there's a conversation that goes on and a plan that's in place that makes some sense to both sides. For non-college providers, we have 3 payment points. One is enrollment, the second is completion of the training, and the third is jobs placement. So those payment points only occur upon success at each one of those stops in the road. Trying to look at consolidating our space at Bolivar. You'll imagine if we went down that many staff, we don't have as much need for 2 floors in that facility. We want to get on 1 floor. We hope that we can reduce our lease payments by spring of 2012 and use those funds to free up those freed up funds to potentially support some initiatives with the homeless job seeker, as well as expanding our ex-offender services and possibly supporting that youth foster care initiative that I mentioned a little bit earlier. We've had some pretty positive results during the past 12 to 18 months. Hope to continue that momentum. Our placements increased to 2,700 in the past program year, 1,500 prior to that. Much of that can be attributed to the shift in philosophy where there's a business focus, at least for part of our resource allocation, and there's a commitment to ensuring that we have open lines of communication with businesses that are seeking to supplement their workforce or add to their workforce so that we can effectively place job seekers with jobs. In the past, we did a lot of great training. We didn't necessarily have a job opportunity when we finished that training. We're changing that now, and as a result, our placements have increased. So we're going to shoot for 3,000 placements in this program year. We've exceeded state guidelines in all 9 performance categories that they measure. We're only one of two counties that have done that. The other is Lake County. The other 18 workforce investment boards at least missed one of the 9 categories. They were either at met or did not meet in those categories. And they check job retention, average wages, youth employment certification, youth literacy and numeracy, and some other categories. We've reached out just in the last couple of months to Team NEO, the Greater Cleveland Partnership, the City and County Economic Development Departments to really ensure that we can work together with them to maximize the leverage of whatever funds are available. And as employers look to either expand locally or locate within the region, that we can assist them ensuring that they meet their workforce needs. That concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Councilman Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Rhines. I have a question regarding your budget surplus of nearly $9 million. Could you talk a little bit about that? And if I'm correct, that's out of a $17 million overall budget. There's still $9 million left.
It's an interesting question, Joe. I don't know that we have $9 million. There are some carryover funds that are allocated that we use over a period of past 12 months. But I don't know that we have what I'd consider a budget surplus of $9 million.
We are not anticipating a budget surplus. It's that some of our contracts, like our youth contracts that we just had approved before County Council in the last week, they've yet to be certified at the time. So some of our on-the-job training contracts that we will be entering into soon will eat up that surplus between now and December 31st.
Gotcha. So
We've committed them, but they haven't been.
okay. So is that about 8.8 million?
It won't be 8.8 million, but about 5 million of that, I think, between now and the end of the year will be committed, yes.
And you typically have some carryover from year to year, right?
Yes. The good thing is with the Workforce Investment Act funds, unspent, you have a 2-year life. Unspent dollars you can use for the next additional year.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Germana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To Mr. Rhines, I see that the funding source, the veterans training, you had 200,000 and under 2011 and nothing projected for 2012-13?
Thanks, Frank.
One thing that happened is the state took some of their set-aside Workforce Investment Act funds a couple of years ago and devoted it to serve veterans. Because of cuts in allocations to the state of Ohio, they quit setting aside funds specifically for veterans. So that funding went away.
Now, that doesn't mean that we don't provide services to veterans, obviously. We certainly work with them. In fact, we've just initiated a special program in conjunction with the Cleveland Clinic to look at returning veterans to see if they can be quickly placed into healthcare environment. We assist them in transitioning their military language and their special capabilities into a resume that assists them when they do their interviews with healthcare providers. So we definitely continue to support veterans, but we do not have that allocation available.
Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Rhines, do you coordinate with the Veteran Service Administration?
Veteran Service Commission?
Yes.
Locally, we don't work directly with them. We have vet reps right on site from the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services.
They've had a surplus over the last several years that they can't spend all their money. I would think there maybe we could have some collaboration.
Be happy to contact them, Councilman.
Councilman Greenspan.
Thank you. In the narrative, it says that you received last year a $2.4 million unanticipated stimulus grant. And I'm curious, the spike in your placements from 1,500 to 2,000, I'm sorry, to 2,500, was that attributable to that spike? And if you don't, and if that stimulus money or those 2.4 million are not made available, do you anticipate your placement rate to drop back to 1,500?
I do not expect our placement rate to drop back, but Frank can explain how the stimulus money was utilized.
Sure. The state unexpectedly had unspent stimulus dollars, and it was all devoted to assist dislocated workers. It was rapid response funds. So they looked at areas that could spend money, and of course we said we could use it. So we applied for those rapid response funds, and we received them, and they were all devoted to assist our dislocated workers. Now, we are about ready to make a significant ask of the state again for those dollars. They won't be stimulus. I don't anticipate receiving that amount again this year, but we do expect to receive significant rapid response funds.
So, Mr. Chair, so the two are not related then, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To follow up on Councilman Rogers' question, the Veteran Service Commission, when they don't spend all of the money, goes back into the general fund. If you mentioned your surplus, you're able to hold over for the next year. Do you hold it over, and do you have an account balance that grows each year, or does it ever return back to the county or anywhere? Just always stays with you?
First of all, they're not county funds. They're
Pass-through dollars?
They're passed through from the Department of Labor to the state to us.
So you keep them, you have them.
We have them available for a 2-year period, and we've never turned money back to the state because they've been unspent.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. You mentioned that you hope to eliminate rent payments and save some money. How do you intend to do that?
We're going to lease one floor in the building we're in instead of leasing 2 floors in the building we're in. So the net result should be a reduction in our lease arrangement. In addition, the build-out costs that were included in the first 5-year lease, those are basically ending. So we should see a reduction from that perspective as well. Ideally, I'd like to see a couple $100,000 released so that we could use those funds to do some of those other initiatives that I mentioned.
Any other questions? Councilman Brady?
Mr. Chairman, if the committee would indulge me, since we seem to have a little bit of time, I know we're not supposed to stray too much. I want to thank you, first of all, for coming in before the Health and Human Services Committee a few weeks ago
My
over
pleasure.
the layoffs at Metro, and the meeting had gone on so long, we barely had any conversation at all, and I know that's not why we're here today.
Okay.
But I wondered if you could make a comment or two about how that's going, since Metro is subsidized by the county, so there is some connection to the budget. But mostly because we didn't really have the time to go into it. How are you folks doing in terms of working with Metro to help the people that have been laid off or are going to be laid off?
Be happy to respond to that, Councilman. As a public entity or a nonprofit, they aren't required to contact us. Metro did reach out and ask for assistance. They were right up front in terms of wanting us to be there to work with them and the employees that are impacted in this transition. My understanding is it's going to be a two-phased situation. The first is primarily with janitorial workers and some bargaining unit members. The second phase would be with higher level healthcare professionals. In both cases, in the event that we have employers that are interested in the employees of Metro, and there's a lot of interest in those employees, we'll bring those employers with us when we meet with the Metro staff. And we've received names of employers from Metro Health themselves who've said they've gotten contact. So we've tried to make those connections to make sure that in the event that we've got individuals that are of interest to those employers, they can actually walk right over on the day that we're having the conversation with them and potentially connect with an employer. So from my perspective, Metro's, first of all, they reached out, they've been very cooperative, and I think they genuinely are interested in trying to do the best they can for the people that are being impacted.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I don't want to take up the committee's time with this, but I'd just like to ask you and appreciate it in advance as the chairman of the Health and Human Services Committee, if you could stay in touch with me or I could stay in touch with you to just sort of, so I have a better sense of keeping track of this, because I'd get questions about this and some of it's district oriented, so I don't want to get into that kind of budget hearing, but we should
We'd be happy to do that.
be in contact.
Be happy to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And my colleagues, I want to wish you all a happy Halloween. I want to tell everybody to get some rest. It's going to be a long day tomorrow. Please study the decision item sheet and be prepared to let me know if there's items that you want held out for further discussion. Councilman Greenspan.
Thanks. I just have one quick miscellaneous comment. Working with Matt Rubino on, as we know, the budget has about a $22 million deficit in it. So I'm working on creating a reserve retention replenishment program. And hopefully in the next week or so, go through the committee process and go through council, and then go to finance. But I just wanted council to be aware that I'm working on something that I've used in the past to hopefully help bridge when we do have to dip into reserves, a way for us to replenish those reserves. So that'll be coming shortly.
And Councilman, is this something that you would propose to be included in the budget bill, or would it be separate legislation?
I think it should be separate legislation.
Separate legislation.
Because I want
Okay.
I'd like it to carry forward for multiple years as opposed to just being pegged with this one budget.
Okay, but we should at least look at it and become familiar with it as part of this budget process. I think it would be a good thing to do.
Very well.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Chairman?
Yes.
Just had a quick question regarding your email with our 3 points that you would like.
Yes.
Can you remind the committee again on when you would want those recommendations?
Yes, the date recommended for that was November 7th, which is a week from today.
And at that time, Mr. Chairman, are there still departments that we will have needed to be heard? Are we?
That's the last day of hearing departments, is on the 7th.
Okay, this document you provided is very helpful, and I'm wondering if you plan on adding to this with other.
I think we'll probably see some more of this process.
Thank you.
And the items that are included on that list, to some extent, you may not need to go over them again, especially if we clear them tomorrow and have some where there's consensus. You know, it would be, but it would be other things to bring forward.
Thank you.
And I would point out to everybody that that your recommendations will be a public record. If anybody wants to see what they are, they're going to be available. You know, so just keep that in mind. Is there any other miscellaneous business, Councilman?
I do, but I see Jack's got his hand.
Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Rogers' comments about the list, if we start selecting tomorrow on the list, but yet we have more to come, we're not necessarily setting them on a priority basis based on the totality of what should be going on there. It would seem to me that, as a suggestion, Mr. Chairman, that we keep adding to the list, create it, and then look at prioritizing those items that would come off the list at that point in time, because I might say, well, of this list, these 6 items would be on my highest priority to make the adjustment, but only to find out that as the days go on, that they would not be as high a priority. So I just throw that out as a comment, that perhaps we wait till the 7th to make that, have that conversation, as opposed to doing it on the list tomorrow.
I think that point is well taken, and that is something that I considered. When we have the list come back tomorrow, I'm going to be particularly looking for those items where I have a clear opinion that people think an item should not be added. You know, because I don't think if you say it's not going to be added now, that's probably not going to change later. If I have an item where people say that it should be added and they agree with a recommendation of that point, I'm going to take that as the preliminary recommendation just so we can move things along, but I'm also going to keep in mind that it could come down the line that we say, well, some other things that have come up that we decide is more important than that. So we'll certainly keep that situation in mind.
Chairman.
Councilman Beatty.
Thank you. Somewhat along the same lines, and I first of all, you know, I just want to say I think you're doing a very good job, and I know that it's difficult to sort of create a process for a budget like this and a new government like this, and some kind of a systematic approach for 11 of us to come to consensus over, you know, so many budget items. Understanding that it's difficult, I know that you probably haven't internalized this and probably have thought a lot of this through, but I'm looking for that time, and I'm not saying the cart's before the horse or whatever, but because I'm not sure about that myself. But I'm looking for that time where we have that broader discussion, because some people refer to deficits and reserves, and I know that there may be 11 different opinions on that. There may not be, but that broader discussion about, you know, how much flexibility is there in this budget? We certainly may have different opinions on that. How much of a reserve is necessary, and we may have different opinions on that. And before we can really talk about decisions I mean, not before, but as part of the process of making a decision about whether I think that more money should be allocated here or less money should be allocated there. I'm looking for more of a sense of what the body thinks about how much give there is in this budget. I mean, I think we probably go from some members maybe thinking there's a lot of give, and some members thinking there's very little give. And somewhere along the way, we're going to be making a decision on that as a council. And so I'm looking for direction about, when that kind of a discussion, if others think it's necessary, would be taking place as part of this process.
We're in uncharted territory. The process that we're doing here out in the open with the decision item list that I started today, in every other budget process that I've been a part of, this was a behind the closed doors discussion, and we're gonna break away from that. We are gonna do it out in the open, but we're gonna have to feel our way around a little bit. But I do think that after I get everybody's suggestions, preliminary, and I recognize they're preliminary, but when I get the preliminary suggestions next week on the 7th, and as and as you recall, that request for suggestions includes specific additions and deletions, but it also includes that overall capacity question that you talked about in terms of how much, if anything, we could spend from reserves, and what comments people had about the $22 million gap in human services, and so I want to see what kind of responses I get from everybody, and then very quickly after that, I'm going to have to put the next step of the process in place.
Right. I appreciate the difficulty and the fact that you're going to have to be creative. And also, I know you've served on the conference committees, and as you say, that were private discussions. We are going to have to be, what we don't want to be is we're going to have to adapt to this new expectation, and which means that we're either going to be inhibited about it because we are, not able to have private discussions. I'll just say it like that, or we're going to have to be uninhibited and just get comfortable with being uninhibited about it, even in areas where we disagree. To not be disagreeable, but we have to be uninhibited enough to disagree with each other in public in order to have these discussions. And I find what you're doing, to be very helpful for myself, and I find it somewhat difficult to come to conclusions, on my own in a vacuum, even though I talk with others, because I can be influenced by what other people have to say, but otherwise I'm sort of having a discussion, with myself. And so I'm looking forward to hearing what members of the council think about these issues.
Councilman Tron.
And that's where I was trying to go, similar to my colleague in regards to what Dan was saying, that these are micro decisions that we're making as opposed to the macro, which is what the foundation gets launched off of first. And I think, as Mr. Greenspan was also talking about, and Mr. Rogers, where do we start with the macro as far as what do we feel comfortable listening to the guidance, and as we go forward to try to get our bond rating up, where do we want to be on the macro decision of how much do we want to have in the reserves? because that's going to ultimately drive the micro decisions of which ones get taken off the list on a priority basis. And I think that probably begs itself, it seems to me, to have that big macro decision as far as what do we see at some point before we start going through the inevitable, which is to start hitting individual points to try and get there. And maybe if the budget was there, we wouldn't be having this discussion, but unfortunately, I think the budget is not going to be there to have the macro decision that anybody would like to have. So therefore, we're going to have to get down to some tough decisions. And I think that the macro is the first one that you got to get to.
Okay. I appreciate everybody's comments, and I will work with all of them and help put together a process that'll get us there. Is there anybody else who has signed in for public comment?
Mr. Chairman, no one has signed in to speak.
Okay. We will see everybody at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Adjourned.
Bring that leftover trick-or-treat.